Everyone, welcome. This is crazy online now. I haven't been podcasting quite a bit, so it's good to be back here and doing it a different way. New little series here, Cullen on film. It's talking the filmmaker, artist, and all that kind of stuff. I know we are live right now on the internet as well, but I'll have my students log on so they can listen and have a special guest to listen to in anything doing with the arts. And of course, today we have Ming Chen. How are you, Ming?
What's up, everybody? How you doing? It's good.
So
It's good to be here.
we have you, and we came to visit you this year, but usually we have you in class, and obviously that's not going to happen now, right? So,
Unfortunately, no, not for the foreseen future. And yeah, Mr. Cullen here. You, what's your official title?
like TV film teacher, I guess.
That's a pretty cool job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't be leading kids anywhere, but if I had to teach a class, that would be the class that I would teach.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Or podcasting class would be you, right?
I'm working on it, man. Yeah, I mean, I've had the distinct pleasure of coming to your class several times, and for 2 or 3 hours at a time and teaching your kids about podcasting, and then this year we switched it up where the kids came to the studio and learned podcasting, and yeah, it looked like they had a lot of fun. So
that was like the last day you were downstairs too. You guys moved up to the 5th floor now.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we moved on up like the Jeffersons, man.
But we had it. That was a great time. They all had a blast. So they'll all be logging on and listening to this as well, which is great. And they love going back and watching and listening to the podcasting that they did. So I don't know. It was great. But anyway, we're here today. Usually we have you in and we get the kids the podcast, and beforehand usually do a little Q&A and talk about your background and stuff. And I have a lot of new freshman students in the arts program as well that they don't even know. Some might know who you are, but they haven't got to meet you yet because you didn't come in. So this will be all new to them.
Awesome.
So,
yeah, fire away. Ask anything you want.
So, well, since we'll focus on podcasting, if they don't know who you are, oh, well, all right. How did you get started in doing all this podcasting and creating a shared universe, which is what you have now, and it's growing?
So I blame Kevin Smith. He started podcasting very, very early on in about 2007. He found a format where he could express himself, where he could talk about whatever he wanted, and basically there were no rules. So I think Kevin, even when he was making films, he was there's always this kind of cloud over him of rules. Even when he was at Miramax, I remember once when he was shooting Dogma, his third movie Dogma, he had wanted to do a thing where he wanted to post his dailies online, like on the same day they were shot, because he wanted to give people a look into like his world of filmmaking.
They really have that yet, did they?
Yeah, and he wanted to demystify it. And I'm like, dude, that's awesome, man. Like, no filmmaker out there would ever post his dailies on the same day he shot them.
Yeah.
How cool would that be? And then, oddly enough, I think Harvey Weinstein called. And he was like, dude, you can't give away the movie before it comes out theatrically. What are you thinking? And I think Harvey Weinstein yelled at him, and he had to go back. He was like, well, Miramax said I couldn't post the dailies. That stinks, but I knew he really wanted to, and like, how revolutionary would that have been in film?
Oh wow! Back then, oh my gosh, yeah,
yeah.
So
yeah. So I always thought, everything he did, there was always rules, and I know at one point Kevin wanted to have his own radio show. So when he moved out to LA, a station gave him 2 hours on a Saturday night, so he could try it out.
Oh yeah.
And it was good. I think if you Google it, you could probably listen to it.
Really? He has it out there?
Yeah, I think he was on, and he got our friend Brian Lynch to co-host with him. It was very cool, but I think it was the same thing though. They're like, well, you can't curse. You got to break for commercials. Like, there are all these rules.
I could just see him doing commercials.
Yeah. And he was like, well, all right, this isn't as fun as I thought it would be. But, a couple years later, podcasting rolled around. And he was like, well, what are the rules? And they're like, the rules are there are no rules. Oh. And I remember posting his very first episode in 2007, and I remember listening to it, and he was cursing, and there's a lot of off-color topics on there, and I was like, this is awesome. Yeah. This is really cool. And of course, once he started podcasting, a lot of people started listening to it because, one, He had an audience already. He was famous. But two, he's such a great storyteller, whether it be movies or, just telling stories from his voice, that I think podcasting was a perfect medium for him.
Yeah, that's one
So,
thing for sure. The kids was like, or even excerpts of it where Kevin talks. Well, I think I did one at one point. Tried to find a story that he told that didn't have so much cursing in it.
that's hard to do.
It was good. It was good. I forget what it was. It was when I first started. I think I had like little clips of like some partial stories that he told because yeah, they haven't seen him like on stage and how he does it. So um, those shows were great. I used to go to a lot of them.
Yeah, so he really, really took to podcasting, and he gained a very large audience very quickly, and he became one of the top podcasters, along with I think at the time like Ricky Gervais was up there. I think Joe Rogan was getting there. Adam Carolla. He was at he was at the top of a very short list of very well known, very highly trafficked podcasters, and so a couple years after he started that, I mean, you could tell he really fell in love with it. He was one of the few guys who found a way to make money doing it by doing live shows, and he was selling some advertising. And at some point, he was like, "You know what? I want to start a network. I want to start a podcast network. I need other shows that aren't just me." At the time, I think he had that, and he had a couple other shows that were him and somebody else, but he wanted to start a network. So he got Walton Bryan and Brian Quinn to start they had a podcast called Tell 'em Steve Dave that went on the network. And he came to me one day. He's like, "Hey, I want you to start a podcast." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Out of the blue, he was just like, "Hey."
Yeah, well, what had happened was that he had a show and he went on vacation, so he wanted me and Mike to fill in for him. And we didn't really know what we were doing,
Yeah.
but he was like, "Just I'm going out of town, I need you to fill in," and we did, and we were pretty good. And he heard it. He was like, "You guys should continue podcasting, and I want you guys to podcast about comic books." He had heard this long segment we did on comics. He's like, "I want you to keep doing that and do it as a podcast." I'm like, that first time was fun, but nobody cares about me. Like, they care about you. You're famous already. You're awesome. And you of course your podcast would take off. I was a guy who uploaded his podcast on the internet. I was the IT guy. And that's what he hired me for. I was like, I don't want to I didn't want to talk into a microphone. I didn't want to start a podcast. I was like, I have no business doing this. I'll support you though. He's like, no. I need you to start a podcast for this network. Don't worry, it's gonna be awesome and people are gonna listen to you. I'm like, well, what am I gonna podcast about? And he's like, well, what do you like? What would you podcast about? And I don't know. I would do like comic books, Star Wars, and food, I guess. He's like, great, that's a podcast.
That is. And was that the start of I Sell Comics?
That was the start of I Sell Comics, yeah. But I was like, that's not a podcast. That's just a couple of guys talking about comic books, Star Wars, and food. He's like, you don't get it. That number one, that is a podcast, and number two, your audience is gonna be everybody else that loves comic books, Star Wars, and food. I'm like, really? I'm like, all right. So me and Mike sat down behind the beat up poker table in the back of the comic book shop. We fired up some mics, some microphones. Mike Zapsik got fired up, and we started talking about comic books. We talked about some Star Wars. Mike used to be a chef, and I love to eat, so we talked about food. And we were off and running from there. Because I remember, I was like, Kevin, man, how long do you want us to go for? He was like, can you do like an hour? I'm like, yeah, I could probably talk an hour about Star Wars comic books and food. And I remember that first episode, I think we went almost 2 hours without even knowing it, because I didn't even look at my phone. I didn't even look at my watch. Like, time just flew by so quick because we were having so much fun.
You don't realize how fast it goes. It happened to us all a lot of times.
Yeah, and
short stuff.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, that was really fun. And I remember the thing that struck me was I went back and I listened to it just to see if we were decent or not. And I was like, wow, this actually sounds pretty good. Like, we sounded like we went to broadcast school, because we flowed pretty well. At that point, I'd known Mike for about 10 years, so we had a pretty good dialogue going already, just as friends. But since we were so well versed in comics and Star Wars and food, the conversation flowed pretty naturally. We were never stuck at a point like, well, gee, what do you want to talk about now? We never had a gap in the conversation. we sounded like a couple of DJs just riffing on pop culture and anything else that came to mind. And we were hooked instantly. I was like, man, that was really fun. Let's keep going. So yeah, for
Done now? Do
years,
you keep track of that?
oh yeah, for years after that, we recorded pretty faithfully once a week, and I think we just crossed our like 310th episode at this point. So um, we I think in the last year or so we slowed down. We kind of got off that once a week schedule because we opened up our own podcast studio.
Yeah, well,
And
in Eatontown, New Jersey.
yeah, and that was the only thing that kind of got us off our schedule. But you were asking about how the studio got started.
Yeah.
At some point, I saw comics kind of took off. We got Comic Book Men somehow found its way onto TV. And so whenever we would go to a Comic Con or when people would visit the store, they would come over to me and Mike like, "Hey man, we really love the podcast." We're like, "Oh yeah, that's cool, man. You listen to I Saw Comics or you listen to our podcast?" They're like, "Yeah, it sounds like fun. We want to do our own. How do we do it?" I'm like, "Oh, well." And we would give them like a 10-minute lesson, 10, 15 minutes. And I was like, and I would tell them kind of briefly what equipment to buy, how to upload it, where to upload it, things like that. But it was, in the back of my head, I was always like, man, this really needs to be like a class, like a 2-hour class where we give everybody everything. We teach everybody what we've learned in the last 10 years. We teach that, and then we actually podcast, and that would be a legit class. But I was like, well, wait, we don't have anywhere to do it. And we'd always kind of joked around about opening up a studio or like a classroom or something, like a podcast studio or a podcast classroom or like a space that would do both. And finally, after a couple of years, we finally got off our butts and did it. And yeah, it was a total experiment, man. We didn't know if anybody would use it. We didn't know if it'd be too niche. We didn't know if anybody wanted to start podcasts besides us. Like, we knew it was fun. We knew our friends were having fun doing it. We knew Kevin was having fun doing it, but would
Or am I off? Oh, jeez.
yeah, would anybody else do it? And I slowly but surely, I remember like, so at first, our friends would come in, then we would get friends of friends, and then I remember the first day when we booked a client, and we were like, holy crap, we don't know these people. We got like, this has to be, we cleaned up the studio, like we had to make it look professional. And I remember they came in and they were a little nervous, and I was there to guide them. And by the end, they're like, "Whoa, that was really fun! Like, can we come back next week?" I was like, "Oh man, I think this is gonna work." So that was we opened up officially a little over 2 years ago, and we've been going ever since.
Yeah, and you're expanding too. You have that, and there's so many more podcasters in there now, and now you opened up Asbury Park as well.
Yeah. We have a studio right on the ocean front, right on the ocean, on the Asbury Park boardwalk, and it was weird how that happened. I was just walking by a vacant property, very nice, very new, and the developers of the boardwalk, we'd been talking about starting a podcast for the city of Asbury Park and encouraging all the public events there and some of the business owners or some of the people who run Asbury Park. And they're kind of taking me on a tour, and I saw a vacant storefront, and I was like, hey, what's going on here? Like, that's going to be empty until the summer. I'm like, oh really? Huh? And then I woke up the next morning. I was like, well, if no one's using it, maybe they would let us use it, maybe for a reduced rate or something. And I in the back of my head, I was like, no, man, there's no way. This oceanfront property, this is highly desirable. But I'm like, you know what? What the hell? And I sent them an email, and I had a whole pitch written out about what I wanted to do. And lo and behold, they're like, you know what? This is a great idea. If let's talk about it. And a week later, we were in there with another podcast studio. So for any kids listening out there, for anybody really, sometimes all you got to do is ask. It's very weird, but there's so many times in life where you're like, man, that'll never happen. I'm not even gonna bother asking.
Always take the chance, right? Always, if you just go out there and try it, right? It's for
Yeah. Very recently, I've learned two things. One, if you don't ask the question, the answer is always no.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, just be bold, man. Just if it seems like a crazy idea, that's why it's going to work. Just ask, and if they say no, big deal. Then you didn't lose anything. You were right where you started. But if they say yes,
Yeah.
then you got some cool stuff happening.
I
And
tell students, go ahead, try, because even with the celebrities I get sometimes, they give them messages. Like I'll ask a lot of them, and I'll get a couple, right? And I just do it. They're like, yeah, of course we'll do it. You were there when the girl from Walking Dead, when I went up to her and she did a video
yep.
quick and stuff like that, and the kids love that. So you just have to ask, and if they say no, okay, bye. If they say yeah, all right.
Yeah, but I mean, I know what it feels like. Growing up, I was pretty shy, and I never asked those questions, man. I was never bold. I was like, you know what? I'm just, there's something I want to ask, or there's something I want to do, but they're probably going to say no, and so I just kind of slunk back, and I didn't do it. And then later on, I'd be like, man, I should have asked. I should have taken action. I should have been a little more bold, and
I think we're all like that though when we're younger too. I was the same way. I was shy, and then later on in life, I was like, I don't care anymore. I'll just ask.
yeah, I know. I wish I could go back to my high school self and be like, you know what, just do it. Just ask. Just whatever you're thinking in the back of your head would be a cool idea. Just try it because it is a cool idea.
You never know. You never
Yeah.
know what happens. So, yeah. So from that, what do you want to do with a shared universe from that point now? So you have Eatontown, you have Asbury. What are you looking? And you have a lot of people that podcast, and now you're doing it online with a lot of people because we have to.
Yeah.
What,
So
what are you looking forward to in the future with it?
So I think the moment that we started getting a lot of people coming in, and it just wasn't the people coming in; it was kind of the diversity of topics that people wanted to podcast about. So on one end, we had small businesses, we had like real estate lawyers, or people running real estate companies, and we had them. We have a lot of people coming in, encouraging people in the health and fitness industry, which is pretty cool. On the other end of the spectrum, we have a podcast where it's just three guys that just go out and party, and then they come back and they talk about it every week on a podcast, and then we have everything in between. So I think once I realized that not only I knew that podcasting was for everybody, that you could talk about any topic you wanted, but once I realized that people would use that as a service and have fun doing it, I was like, oh man, we gotta we gotta get this to everybody. So the ultimate goal for a shared universe is to have a shared universe podcast studio everywhere. I would love it. I would love to see it in every major city. And, especially all the cities that I love and that I go to in my travels, like Houston. We both know Houston, Texas. It is an amazing town that could really use a podcast studio right now.
Yeah.
But cities like Chicago and Nashville and Atlanta, Georgia, and there's so much. I could see this working in so many places, and I'm hoping to make that happen in the near future. But yeah, I think if it can work, and we're not in a big area, Eatontown, New Jersey, Asbury. These are small to mid-sized communities that, and if you combine them, they kind of make up one large area.
Yeah.
But imagine dropping a shared universe in the middle of like Chicago or something. I think I think we could be onto something there.
Yeah, or even New York City.
Oh man, yeah. If only the rents weren't so high. So, yeah. So I'm working on it. Like any small business, you gotta recoup your initial investments and then put that money towards something bigger. And I think that's where we're heading toward right now.
Well, hopefully all this will end soon and we can go back into the studios and do that. But this is, in the meantime, this is great. So we're going to have some more shows live here on the internet, which is going to be a cool thing while we have not much else things to do, right? I mean, you've been doing this a lot now.
Yeah, I have. For me, it's keeping me sane for sure, and it's keeping me connected to all the people that, either were coming in the studio, or I'm seeing a lot of friends who I haven't seen in a while.
Yeah.
Just people I've run into in my travels, and we're figuring out, or I'm helping them get hooked up via live streaming or video conferencing, and yeah, I mean technology, whether you love it or hate it, in times like this, in times of crisis, it actually works out pretty well. So, I've been hopping on one-on-one video chats with people,
Yeah.
And the other night, I was on a video conference with like 20 other people who I hadn't seen in a year from the convention world, and it was good. I think it was good for my soul. It was good for my sanity, and I just think especially now when we're all basically forced to be apart. Things like podcasting and technology is really bringing us closer together. I think that's pretty cool.
It's actually also easier to get celebrities now to send little messages. They're home. They got nothing else to do.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. They're not working on any productions. They're not traveling. Yeah, they're. Yeah. So I imagine there's that app called Cameo. I imagine they're doing pretty well right now.
Yeah. And a lot of them that like if I sent out an email a long time ago, like, hey, I got your email and all that. Can you send a message? And then you haven't heard from them in like months and months and months. I figured, I'll never hear from them. And then all of a sudden, they're starting to come in now.
So they're going through their backlog. They're like, yes.
I think so. Like, might as well do it now, right?
Who's this?
So,
CJ Cullen. It's like, I'll answer his email. Yeah, well, I'll see what he's up to. Maybe he'll talk back to me. So, yeah, I think.
So I got a couple coming in for the students, and I had a guy from Star Wars Rebels who does a voice. He did a little intro. We just released our film festival online. So if you go to North TV Film Productions on YouTube and you click on, you can on that YouTube you can watch it's about an hour long, a bunch of our films, and a couple of celebrities pop in there, and one of the celebrities introduces our little Star Wars fan film.
That's awesome. And I met the filmmaker behind that Star Wars fan film.
Oh yeah.
He was very enthusiastic. He had a lot of energy, and I could tell. I wish I could have been there the first day that he figured out how to make a lightsaber. Like that must have just been mind blowing.
It's pretty cool. You got well, I think I showed you the clip anyway or something.
Yeah.
But they never got to finish because of all, they had a lot of footage and they had to shoot like maybe one more day. That's all they needed. And they were unable to do that because, we're not in school right now. And they needed like the gym for a certain thing, but they got a lot done. And I think he's editing more of it together, but we have a nice little intro part and it says to be continued at the end.
Oh, that's awesome.
But it's actually enough for a student film. It's like about 4 minutes long and it's just the intro.
And what was the YouTube channel called again?
North TV Film Productions.
Okay, cool. I'm definitely gonna check that out. I'm putting it in the chat here too.
We just released it yesterday, our online film festival, the North Online Film Festival, and already we got over 100 views, which is great. That means people are watching. And you can also, right now, for the next few days, there's a link right below it, and you can actually write in the names of the best actor, best actress, and by the end of the week, it's all tallying up too on that sheet that I have.
Yeah.
So we'll have the winners by like Friday.
That's badass, man. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, it's amazing what you can do when you're home and not doing much, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you come up, just start your own awards festival for sure.
Yeah. So we put that together and that's really cool. And then
I love your setup. I when I was in high school many years ago, we had a TV. It was a TV and radio class back then. They didn't do film, and we had the little set and everything. But I think the technology wasn't where like a guy like me wanted it to be. Where I wanted to, I can make a full-on production. I thought it was very rudimentary back when I was going to high school in the early '90s.
Oh, it was, yeah.
Now,
we did have 16 millimeter film though, but it was really hard for us to get it. We'd film with it, but then to get it developed, they would send it out and it would never come back.
Oh man, I imagine it must be expensive at this point too, because like I don't know who's processing 16 millimeter film at this point. But I remember going into your classroom, you guys had a whole row of like high-end IMAX. You guys have like a whole Adobe suite. These kids could legit, and they do legit make shorts and professionally quality shorts and film with motion graphics and high-end editing. And I was like, man, it's pretty cool that the future of filmmaking is being birthed in like high schools right now.
Yeah, so that's what's pretty much going on with us. We have actually Easter break or winter break, or not winter break, spring break coming up in a couple of days. So we have 5 more days, and they got quarterlies to do online right now. So I thought it'd be really cool to have you as a guest speaker, since we can't have you in class. And now I could just, take this video, put it up there, and they can watch it.
Yeah, right on. That's cool. I mean, I'm always here to help out Middletown North anytime for sure.
Yeah, so we'll have to maybe early next year when we start out. We'll have you in early next year with our new studio because they're fixing it up a little bit.
Oh man, yeah, I've heard rumors of possibly a podcast studio in there at some point, which
That's on the list of things to do. So
I would love to help out with for sure.
you never know. It could be a podcasting class in the future. That's my goal to have it there. So that's one of my goals to have at the school.
I think I mean I think that's probably in the future where there will be a podcasting curriculum in all high schools.
They do have them in the middle schools. They have like a little, computer and you can. So a couple of the middle schools have it.
That's cool. I mean, I've always because inner students mainly adults or some millennial podcasters. I mean, although our age range goes from like 15 to like 70, so we run the whole gamut as far as podcasters go. But I've always encouraged more more kid podcasters or more teen podcasters, because you and I both know they have stuff to say, and what better outlet than podcasting?
Yeah. So I might, as we do this and go along in the next few weeks, I'm going to see if some of my students want to come on. So we're going to try to get some of the filmmakers, and they could talk about their films, as well as other filmmakers. And we're going to try to do Hang On to Your Shorts podcast soon as well.
Oh yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun for sure.
And we'll have more guests. I'll have some more guest people on, and more Cullen on film episodes. So I just want to say, thanks for being here with us, and I'm sure the kids will enjoy it, and they'll listen into the podcast at A Shared Universe.
Awesome, thanks for having me. It's a huge honor. Always, Mr. Cullen.
Great, thanks.
Thanks.